Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From Vinyl to VHS. As usual, it's a show all about old things that we love. This episode, we have a really exciting show about childhood TV and movies. So let's jump right in with some of those nostalgic TV shows. I don't know about you guys, but Cyber Chase was my absolute favorite. I don't care if it's nerdy. I loved it.
This is a Cyber Chase theme song for everybody.
Brings back so many good memories.
That just took me right back into childhood, just sitting in the chair watching TV in the morning. That was so fun.
Well, I feel like with TV shows it changes because I feel like when you're young, talking about old things that we now love, a lot of it's about education. I feel like that's the one thing that Cyber Chase did so well is that it was a lot of math and science and fundamental skills that a lot of silly cartoons or even shows you watch when you're a teen, they don't really talk about that. It's a lot of drama and other things, but this was fundamental skills that I feel like when you get older, even if you don't think about it, those are the things that really help you when you become a high school student or a middle school student because of the skills that you learn even from a TV show. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching Cyber Chase in the kitchen eating my Cheerios or whatever, I was not thinking about how it was teaching me fundamental skills. I was just wondering how they were going to complete their mission. So I do really appreciate it for that reason. Really made learning entertaining.
Well, another one of the shows that's like that I feel like is Sesame Street, because I know it's another one that we wanted to talk about a little bit because I don't know about you, Shannon, but I remember Sesame Street's that one show that whether you're a kid that's 20 years old now or 30 years old now or you're a toddler now, that's been a part of your life either way, just like
For
Cyber
sure.
Chase too.
Yeah, so here's the Sesame Street theme song.
Wow, really bringing it back with
Really
that
bringing
one.
it back.
I could not have told you what that sounded like actually. There it is.
There it is.
Yep, that's it. It's crazy to me how, just like you were saying, Alex, everybody can really has some sort of relation to Sesame Street. I mean, I had VHS, or what are those box ones? They're VHS.
Cassettes, right?
Cassettes in my basement, just lined up of Sesame Street, and my sister watched it, and she's 5 years younger than me, so it's really crazy how everybody seems to watch it.
My current roommate actually was on an episode of Sesame Street, which is just so funny. You can watch it on YouTube. She did Dancing with Big Bird, which is so funny to watch now. And they talked about all the healthy snacks and ways that you can be active. So
it's funny you mentioned that, and one that we weren't necessarily going to talk about, but you mentioned kids being on shows. I always think about Mickey Mouse Clubhouse too, and there was that show, I forget, I think it was Justin Bieber, other artists have been on the Mickey Mouse show where you had artists that came on when they were young kids, performing talents. I don't even know the name of that.
And a bunch of Britney Spears were on that show.
I will never forget, Nora Jones was on Sesame Street, and she sang the song that she sing. I'm not going to sing for you, but it's basically she sings why a lot, and then they had it when they were teaching the letter Y, and that literally has stuck to me to this day. But speaking of Sesame Street, I feel like there's some relevant news to talk about here with
sure.
Big Bird and the controversy surrounding the vaccine. Which, I mean, they. Big Bird has always been a promoter of vaccines, which I'd like to clarify because it seems like people are really jumping on Big Bird for endorsing the COVID vaccine. But Big Bird's always been.
Yeah, in the 80s, Big Bird was promoting vaccines, not on Twitter, but on the show itself, so take with that what
and that's
you
something
will.
that's so cool about a lot of these shows. Another one we have on here is Arthur, and I think the reason why that show is another one of those impactful shows is you have someone who's anthropomorphic aardvark, who's somebody that's kind of like an outcast. It's a mouthful, but it's someone that's almost like an outcast in some ways. But that show kind of shows you how to accept them and treat them just like anybody else, which is a lot of what Sesame Street is about too. You have a combination of Muppets that are all different characters, but they all live on the same street, right? There's room to play on any block. I think that's something that's always cool about Sesame Street or a show like Arthur too.
And I also love about Sesame Street how there's kind of that interactive. I don't know if you guys ever went, but there's a Sesame Street in New York. And I remember wanting to go as a kid. Yeah, I don't know if it's still a thing, but it was when I was a kid. And I just remember thinking it was so cool to be on Sesame Street. And feel like I was really in it. But speaking about Arthur, that is another one of those shows that really just sticks with you because so one of my best friends actually dressed up as DW for Halloween this year, and we're fully 22 years old, but that was something that really just stuck with us and was such a nostalgic thing. Everybody saw her and they were like, oh my God, DW, that's exactly what that is, which I thought was so funny.
And there are so many memes now of DW and just
with the
she was
fist
so sassy.
Yeah,
my mom used to let us not watch TV shows because characters were too sassy, but I think that I got a lot of sassiness from DW on Arthur. She wasn't really catching that one.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too. Like, you talk about shows that have a lot of sass in it. I remember there were certain parents, talk about SpongeBob's like the pinnacle, I feel like, children's show. And you had a lot of parents that always would say, oh, I can't watch that. I can't let my kid watch that because of the jokes and the humor and things that you don't want them to pick up. And a lot of the shows we're talking about is, like, the ones that we remember the most are, like, the educational ones. I think there's, like, there's got to be some reason for that.
So, SpongeBob, were you guys allowed to watch that? I wasn't.
I was. See, that's interesting.
No.
That's very interesting. Yeah. My little sister was allowed to watch it, but I was not allowed to watch it. That's really, I think, younger sibling syndrome. Are you a younger sibling?
I am, but hey, it was mutual in my house. We didn't have any sort of favoritism.
Interesting. Yeah, I was always really mad that I didn't get to watch SpongeBob, but
we've talked about a lot of TV shows, and I feel like the other thing that's really important to mention, because I'm personally a really big movie fan, and I think we cannot go without talking about the animated pictures or the motion pictures that we watch as kids without talking about movies. So I'll open the floor. I'll start with you, Shannon. What do you think is the most kind of, if you think about your childhood and you picture one movie that you were in love with, what's that movie for you?
I watched Ariel, The Little Mermaid, and the sequel to Little Mermaid every single day. I mean, she was just my favorite princess and favorite movie for my entire childhood. So that's my go-to. What about you, Cassie?
My parents were very against TV, movies, anything like that for a very long time, but they decided that Sound of Music was the one movie that I was allowed to watch. Sound of Music and Fiddler on the Roof. But Sound of Music, I would sit around the table watching Sound of Music with my mom, like in our tiny little Manhattan apartment, probably once a day, to the point where my mom like got so annoyed with Sound of Music. She was like, okay, fine, you can watch like all the like trashy, she called them, TV shows and movies. So I think that's when my love for Cyberchase and Arthur started. But
you talk about music, just remind everyone, you listen to From Vinyl to VHS, so we talk about music, we talk about shows, and you talk about Sound of Music, and something that was so interesting about that, I remember my grandma always had old cassettes of a lot of like shows and movies, and Sound of Music was one of them, and I never really watched it until a few years later, talking about like the present day, when, I don't know if you guys remember this, but ABC did that thing where they took like old shows or old movies and made them like Broadway adaptations like for TV, and Sound of Music was one of them, which I remember watching. Like that's a way of getting like a new audience to like older things in some ways.
Yeah.
We got this iconic song on live television.
Ugh. I just love this song. I will never not love that song. I feel like that is the song of my childhood. I say every single song is nostalgic, but that one is really like the song of my childhood, which I think is so funny and so different from so many other people's childhood. But that said, I still absolutely love Sound of Music and would watch it every single day if I could. But it is like, what, 2.5 hours, 3 hours? It's very long.
It's a pretty long movie, especially for a kid to sit through. So. Oh, yeah. Nods to you.
I mean, I'm sure I didn't watch the entire thing, but...
Well, as a kid especially, but now you get the chance to, right, when you get older. But the broader theme, just to kind of wrap up, that we were talking about with, like, things that are old, things that are new. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I have to mention that. We're talking about childhood. My fondest memory of movies is sitting in a sleeping bag watching a VHS of an old Star Wars film with my aunt and uncle. And, like, now you talk about, like, present day and remakes, and you talk about Ariel and the Little Mermaid is another remake that they're trying to do, Disney. And there's, like, so many things nowadays that are being remade, and sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I agree. I think there definitely are too many adaptations of Cinderella. I think we need a break from Cinderella
I think we're good with Cinderella.
While. But speaking of Star Wars, what are your thoughts on the new trilogy versus the original?
This is a touchy subject. I'm going to keep it simple. I love the prequel trilogy because that's like when I was a kid, what was popular. I feel like now everybody might hate the movies now, but let's wait 20 years from now. And all of a sudden when those kids get older and they're the ones talking on social media, I feel like a lot of the narrative changes. So I'm looking forward to see the next generation of kids like us kind of growing up and talking about our favorite things.
For sure. Well, that's all the time we have today on From Vinyl to VHS. Thank you, Cassie and Alex, for being here with me. We hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you're listening from.